I now welcome Senator the Honourable Anthony Chisholm, Assistant Minister for Regional Development. Assistant Minister, do you wish to make an opening statement?
No thanks, Chair, but good to see you back on deck.
Good, thanks. Thanks very much. I welcome Jim Betts, Secretary of the Department of Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development, Communication, Sports and Arts. Mr Betts, do you wish to make an opening statement?
Just an extremely brief one, if I may, Chair.
Please go ahead.
Senator Canavan wrote to me on the 23rd of September and the 3rd of October on behalf of opposition senators requesting detailed information in relation to a number of funded programs administered by the department, consistent with past practice and with relevant guidance from the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet. I'm pleased to table an extensive package of information in response to the senators' requests this morning.
Thank you, Mr Betts. I now call if you have questions. There's questions from corporate matters, and I go to Senator McKenzie.
Thank you very much. Good to be back. Just on corporate matters, I'm going to go through a lot of the mogging changes, etc., which ministers have DLOs where, and I'll probably have to be redirected in some of the other corporate matters, but I want to find out where I need to go. My first question is, when is the next Transport Ministers' meeting?
I'm not sure that you mean the meeting of the Infrastructure and Transport Ministers meeting, ITM.
ITM.
I'm not sure, actually. I may be able to. I think it's maybe at the end of the year, but I'm not sure it's been scheduled yet.
Ms Butcher, has it been scheduled?
Good morning, Marie Bridger, Chief Operating Officer. I don't have that detail, but I know one of my colleagues behind me will be able to source it, and we'll get it for you shortly.
As I say, it meets.
So we don't know when we're actually having our next meeting of state transport infrastructure ministers.
We'll check whether a meeting has been diarised, but it occurs every 6 months, usually around the middle of the year and then again at the end of the year. So typically a meeting of ITM would take place in December, but sometimes those meetings, because of the need to align ministers' diaries, aren't scheduled a long time in advance. So we'll see.
So it hasn't been called yet, but the expectation...
I don't have a date in my head, but typically it would meet around the end of the year.
Has it been called? Has Minister King written to state and territory? Has Minister King written to state and territory transport ministers about the next ITM meeting?
I'm not aware that she's written, but we'll find that out for you. Normally, this is managed out of our transport group, but
well, I think we're getting that data right now.
Is it actually scheduled?
I think it's scheduled for the 21st.
Right. So we think a meeting is being scheduled for the 21st of November.
21st of November.
That's subject to confirmation.
Yes, so the request for a meeting's gone out and you're waiting for state and territory ministers to come back. Excellent. On the 2nd of September 2025, the 7:30 report revealed a shocking allegation of more than 300 complaints of harassment and sexual abuse by driving instructors as young people, particularly young women, sought to get their driver's licence. And I think nothing can be more concerning for parents than the prospect that vulnerable young underage daughters, presumably as young as 15 here in the ACT, have been exposed to predators in the form of driving instructors that the parents themselves have actually paid for. When questioned by the 7:30 report, Minister King declined to be interviewed and claimed that this was a matter for the states. What is the reason that the federal government isn't leading the push to actually deal with protecting young drivers from predators whilst getting their licence?
Well, it was an appalling report, and as someone
who's notes from the minister?
Got their one family member doing their learners at the moment, it was something that was really concerning, and I know that Minister King was equally concerned about it as well. The reality is of the way that the systems are run is that the states and territories do have responsibility for managing those outcomes, and I'm sure that if there's anything that the federal government can do to support states and territories in their work on this, then I'm sure we'd be willing to do it.
Is this an issue that you've put on the agenda for the upcoming meeting, Minister?
I don't put issues on the agenda for those
In
meetings.
your talking points from Minister King's office, has she put it on the agenda?
I'd have to take on notice in terms of what the agenda for
I'll go to the department,
for the ministers'
who will have
meeting
drafted
is, but
the
I
letter
do
to
know
State and
that
Territory Ministers.
it is something that Minister King did find appalling, and I'm sure that
Of
she'd
course
be
she
willing
found
to
it
help.
appalling, because it is appalling. And one of the great privileges of being a Minister of the Crown in this country is you have to take a leadership role and you have to do the right thing. People expect it. Secretary, the department will have written to State and Territory Ministers calling for a meeting on the 21st of November, seeing if it aligns with their diaries. Has Minister King requested this issue to be part of the agenda?
I'm not aware that the agenda for that meeting has been set yet.
No, that's not my question.
Well, I'm not aware that the agenda has been set
Has
yet. So
Minister
that's my
King...
answer.
OK, let's do it this way. Has Minister King requested a briefing from the department on how the Commonwealth can assist in this particular issue?
Not that I'm aware of, but we'll check with the relevant part of the department. We can answer that under outcome 2.
So we're going to delay having a conversation about it again, just like the Minister has delayed calling her State and Territory counterparts to discuss an urgent issue. An urgent issue. It's one thing for the Minister King to say she's appalled, Minister Chisholm. It's another thing to get off your ass and actually do something about it.
Speaking with,
Do you have a point of order?
I do. At the outset, we talked about treating people with respect and dignity and courtesy. I don't know if that is. So,
I would like vulnerable drivers to be treated with respect, dignity and courtesy, and I would like to think this is actually above politics, and I would like Minister King to take action and call an urgent meeting. So, Secretary, you're saying that the Minister hasn't requested advice on what the Commonwealth, what measures the Commonwealth could take to protect vulnerable learner drivers.
I'm going to hand over to Ms Hall, who is the Deputy Secretary and other things responsible for road safety.
Ms Hall.
Morning, Senator. Jessica Hall, Deputy Secretary, Infrastructure. Minister King wrote to all of her counterparts on the 4th of September in regards to this matter. She has received responses from a number of her counterparts, including the Victorian Minister.
Could you go through who has responded, please, Ms Hall?
I can find that out for you, and I'll come back to you in regards to that. And we can see if we can table some information in regards to that as well. She was quite strong in her correspondence in regards to this matter, and has asked for all of those jurisdictions to ask what additional information and actions they will actually be taking.
So has she also requested advice from...
She's asked for advice on what...
And when did she request that advice, and when was the advice provided to Minister King?
She requested information on that day that she wrote. So I think it was the 4th of September.
You said the 4th?
Yeah.
And when has the department provided Minister King?
We provided advice on the same day that she asked.
So she didn't request it? You provided it on the 4th?
She requested information on the matter that was raised.
No, my question, again, this will be the 4th time. My question was, when did Minister King request advice on the measures that the Commonwealth could take?
Oh, on the Commonwealth.
Did she have any levers available to her to actually address this issue? Did she request that advice?
She asked the department in regards to whose responsibility these matters were. We provided advice that most of these responsibilities sit with the states and jurisdictions. That's why she wrote to her counterparts to find out exactly what extra information and issues that they could undertake. And they have responded accordingly.
No. So the Minister did not ask, were there any available levers for her to actually address this issue. Call an urgent meeting, get the ministers up to Canberra, read the Riot Act.
Well, it sounds like the minister did.
Well, the
ask for advice.
minister did ask for that, and we
And you said the only thing available to you is to write a letter.
was to seek. Well, I think what we said, Minister, was that it would be good to find out exactly what the responsibilities of the states and territories were in the first place, so that we could then make informed decisions from there.
So, of all the possible options available to a Commonwealth minister, and the Commonwealth more broadly, because this issue obviously crosses way beyond the Transport Division, how can the Commonwealth provide leadership in the protection of vulnerable young learner drivers?
I think the issue is, Senator, that the key thing is that when those things happen, the first thing that they should do is actually report it to the police.
You know what they say when the reason things can't get fixed is because the girl never rocked up to the police and reported it? That's a really... I don't take that, Ms Hall.
I think that's a... I understand your point in regards to that, Senator.
So what are the possible options for the Commonwealth to take leadership, other than say this is a state issue?
Well, I think the issue is that we're trying to find all of the information so that we can work collectively. That's what we're trying to do. And
have you contacted the Attorney-General's Department?
We have been in contact, I believe, yes, Senator.
So, Ms Hall, I shouldn't have to pull the teeth out. I'm on team solving this issue.
Yes, Senator.
So what are the possible options? What are all the possible options for the Commonwealth Minister to deal with this, other than it's a state issue? I've written to them and read the Riot Act, and we may talk about it in November.
I think, Senator, in regards to these issues, a majority of the responsibilities sit with the states and territories, unfortunately, because they are the ones that register. They are the ones that are responsible for the RTOs and all of the responsibilities of requiring the registration and the responsibilities of those driver schools.
So I'm taking it. I want to actually know, I know someone's getting you who wrote back.
Yep.
Victoria's written back. I'd like a full list, if we've got it, of which states and territories have written back and when, and I know that's on someone's computer. What actions, you said the Minister wrote a very stern letter. I'd like to know what actions she requested state and territory ministers to take.
I'll rotate in 2 minutes, and then we'll do 5-minute blocks, just so it's on the WhatsApp group. But yes, if you could answer the question to Senator Mackenzie.
Yeah.
Chair, this is a serious issue. I know you're sitting in for Senator Sterle, but he does, when we're on a topic as serious as this, he does allow us to finish our line of questioning before moving on.
I believe that the Minister's also engaged...
I'm rotating in 2 minutes.
I believe the Minister's also engaged with the Minister for Women and the Minister for Social Services.
And what actions did, as I said, what actions...
We will come back with you on the answers to those.
You've got the letter up, you'll have a PDF of the letter on the laptop.
Yes.
Can you read the actions out, please?
So the Minister has asked for the government, for the states and territories to advise her on what additional actions that they can take in regards to the fact that, that the driving instructions in regards to certification and complaints handling of the driving instructors in preventing sexual harassment and assault, for ensuring that they are safe workplaces.
You know, she could have asked them to let parents sit in the car with learner drivers, because predators would find it pretty hard to molest their daughters if mum or dad is sitting in the back seat.
So the certification and the requirements of RTOs are the responsibilities of the states and territories. So what she's asked for is the states to come back with a process in regards to actually providing a safer environment for those people.
did she, in her letter, let the states and territory know that at a matter of urgency this would be on the next ITM meeting?
No, she didn't, Senator.
Had she called the ITM meeting by then?
No, she hadn't, Senator.
She
was
didn't
working
even...
still. The agenda hasn't been set for the...
I'm calling for this to be #1 topic. Can you let the minister know?
We have road safety as a standing
Road
agenda.
safety?
This goes to issues in regards to a whole range of issues in regards to road safety as a standing item on the ITM agenda, Senator.
Did the minister, in her letter to states and territories, suggest that they adopt what taxis have in them, like live streaming, video? Did the minister suggest that in her letter, of urgency and anger?
No, Senator. She's left it to the states and territories to tell her what they can do, because each jurisdiction is different. And each jurisdiction can undertake a range of things in regards to their responsibilities, because they are the responsible entity for certification and registration of their...
That's a very good bureaucratic answer, and Ms Hall, you're doing your job. Minister, is this acceptable?
Well, I think what's become clear is that the minister did take strong and immediate action in terms of putting pressure on the states. Can I finish?
Sure.
Putting pressure on the states and territories to ensure that they're doing their part. So I think that the department have talked through that there's limited role that the federal government can play in terms of actually changing some of these issues at the state and territory level, but I'm sure that the minister, writing to her counterparts at the state and territory level, would ensure that they're taking it with the appropriate seriousness that it deserves, given how outrageous and concerning the reporting of those issues was.
So 300 young women is the tip of the iceberg here, when we know the pattern of reporting sexual abuse and harassment. The women that are brave enough to go and report it is the tip of the iceberg. And the complacent attitude to this reminds me of your government on childcare.
That's not accurate.
It took weeks, months for the Education Minister to get childcare state ministers into the room to talk about the sexual abuse that was happening in childcare centres. And here we have it again. You haven't even put it on the agenda of your Transport Ministers' meeting.
That is completely inaccurate.
It is not
mischaracterisation of what happened.
I've heard the evidence. This is the evidence.
No, it's not.
I'm sorry. Post-truth era, that is ridiculous. You've sat here and listened to what the department has done, what the minister has actually requested, the date she requested it, and she only requested it because 7:30 made it an issue on the 2nd. She requested on the 4th and doesn't ask what she can do as a leader of transport in this country. It is appalling. Because you know what? You don't just get to sit and get your fat paychecks. You actually need to act.
Well, we won't take advice on how to govern from you.
Oh, really? I would never have sat on my hands like this.
The minister has been absolutely clear about what she has done.
You need to call an urgent Transport Ministers meeting and deal with it.
Can I just have a stop for a moment? We are going to go to the government to ask some questions. They have important matters I wish to ask as well. You're more than welcome to have a follow-up question, but if the minister can answer, have an opportunity to answer the question to the minister.
Well, the minister has taken strong action on this. The key responsibility does lie with state and territory governments, and I'm sure that if there's more work the minister needs to do, that she will be prepared to do that.
Call a meeting straight away and put this at the top of the agenda. There's my action item. Request, humbly, on behalf of these vulnerable young women.
Sister Minister, would you like to make any response to that? Thank you. Senator Mulholland.
Thank you, Chair. The Australian Government released its Transport Sector Plan on the 18th of September, outlining strategies to reduce emissions by promoting cleaner vehicles and low-carbon fuels. With this sector plan in mind, what is the government doing to support the sector to transition?
Okay, so thank you. So the roadmap and action plan, as you say, was released on the 18th of September following extensive consultation during 2024. And across a range of different initiatives, action is already being taken to move down the pathway to net zero by 2050. Most notable, and we can talk about this under the transport outcome, is the new vehicle efficiency standard, where the legislation was enacted in the Parliament on the 24th of May. In May 2024. That legislation commenced at the beginning of this year. We can talk in detail under the transport outcome about what that entails. Other measures, the government has instituted Euro 6 standards for heavy vehicles and Euro 6D for light vehicles to deal with noxious emissions. The implementation of the election commitment around real-world testing. We're developing a maritime emissions reduction national action plan to chart a practical net zero course for the domestic maritime sector. That's in development at the moment. And the government also recently announced a $1.1 billion commitment to grants to support domestic producers of low-carbon liquid fuels, which will assist across a number of different sectors, not least aviation. And I have the pleasure of chairing a Jet Zero Council in the aviation sector, where there is a very strong unanimity of purpose that low-carbon liquid fuel, sustainable aviation fuel, is a big part of the decarbonisation pathway for the aviation sector, and it would be great if Australia could have a strong and thriving domestic production capability for low-carbon liquid fuels.
Thank you, Mr Betts. I was in Mackay last week, and I can tell you that the millers are very excited about the prospect of sustainable fuel industry for aviation, very excited about the opportunities that exist there. So I would like to just further on that point, what actions are being prioritised to address opportunities and challenges in the sector, Mr Betts?
In the transport sector generally, or in the aviation sector specifically?
In the transport sector.
Okay, well, I think if we look at the overall contribution of emissions from the transport sector by the end of this decade, transport is projected to be the largest emitter within the Australian economy. And within that, approximately 80% of emissions come from road transport, and 3/4 of them come from light vehicles, from cars. So this points to the centrality of the new vehicle efficiency standard, which, as I said, was enacted in 2024 and brings Australia into alignment with all other OECD countries apart from Russia in having a fuel efficiency standard, something which has been attempted by governments repeatedly over time but has been enacted in recent times, and that NVES is now in operation and will enable and support the transition of our car fleet towards a much more low emissions future.
Thank you, Mr Betts. Just on the transport sector, what has been the reaction of some key stakeholders to the release of the plan? Have you got any feedback so far from whether public or private about the responses?
Well, we consulted extensively on the plan when it was in draft, and since that time we've received extensive and generally very positive feedback. Inevitably, in an issue as complex and far-reaching as decarbonisation, there will be voices who say that the plan is too ambitious, and others that say that it lacks ambition. But we're pretty satisfied, consistent with the broad direction set by the government's recent announcement on its emissions target for 2035. That the NVES and the action plan more generally sets us on the right course, and that's been largely reinforced by the feedback we've had from many stakeholders.
Thank you.
Just Ms Hall,
Senator McKenzie.
Yeah, sorry, Ms Hall, I did have one final question on that other matter. You were going to tell me which states had actually responded other than Victoria.
I'm still just waiting for clarification. I'll come back to you on that one.
Sure. Well, let's continue in the vein of Secretary, in answers to the government, I think it must be a record we're going to government questions by 9:30 in Senate estimates, but anyway, you did say that there will be people that argue too ambitious, others will argue too aggressive, not ambitious enough, etc. Has anybody told the department that it's going to be impossible?
What is going to be impossible?
The emissions reduction expected under the sector plan for transport.
No, the sector plan, as I say...
No one's told you that? No one's let the Department of Transport know that it's impossible to sell 6 million new EVs in the next 10 years?
So if we're going into detail around the new vehicle efficiency standard, I think that is best handled under the transport outcome. And then I can have the subject matter experts at the table. But if you're talking about broad feedback on the roadmap,
yep.
The purpose of the roadmap is to set general directions. So, as you know, for each of the subsectors within transport, each of the modes, it identifies technological and other pathways to enable us to transition towards net zero. But the net zero target itself is an economy-wide target which applies in 2050. And so there are many policy interventions and many technological innovations which can occur under this government and under future governments between now and the 2035 target, let alone the 2050 target.
Yeah, no, I understand that's the purpose of the plan. My question was the feedback I'm assuming that your department played a key role in informing this work. For this particular sector.
Yep.
And so, in forming that advice, did you talk to industry?
There was extensive consultation, yes, over a period of many months.
And so, industry was confident they would be able to meet these targets?
Yes. I mean, it depends. When you say these targets, are you talking about the overall targets for the economy? Because we don't have transport.
I don't expect you to comment on the whole economy. We know that transport sector emissions are close to 25% of our entire emissions profile. We also know that the government's plan is to get the transport sector to do a lot of the heavy lifting.
Yeah, it has to.
I appreciate what you're saying, and where the government, that's a government decision. That's a government decision. So in the engagement in transport industry broadly, they were confident that they could meet the target.
It varies across different sectors because different sectors within transport have different levels of certainty as to the technological pathway to deliver emissions reductions. In the case of the light vehicles, which I think is probably where you're going with this, there is a reasonable degree of certainty that the adoption of electric vehicles and hybrid vehicles is the pathway that we're on, and we're seeing quite a significant take-up in EVs and hybrids at the moment. For the maritime sector and the aviation sector, the technological pathway is less certain. There are a number of different technologies which are potentially in the mix there. And those will need to be explored and developed and commercialised over time. So it depends which part of the transport. And aviation likewise. So, for instance, low-carbon liquid fuels, which I've just talked about, sustainable aviation fuel will play a large part, particularly for medium and long-haul operations. It may be that electrification has a role for shorter-haul flights, but that's the kind of technological development which we'll need to monitor and support over time.
So in the development of the government's plan to electrify, particularly the light vehicles, the passenger vehicles, under the NVES, it is, close, just over 6 million new EVs, which industry has come out subsequently and said is impossible. And you're saying, Mr. Betts, that industry didn't give you that advice prior to the development of the sector plan?
So you're going into quite specific assumptions underlying the NVES. I might ask Ms Purvis-Smith to step in at this point.
Can I clarify? There's no transport sector target itself. So the government has set a target for the whole of the economy, but there's no specific sector targets. So each sector and each mode within the transport sector, as the Secretary has outlined, will decarbonise at different rates. due to the different maturity of the technology available for each mode. So there is no transport sector target.
All right, Ms Purvis-Smith. Did industry tell you it would be impossible or highly unlikely to be able to shift off car lots over 6 million electric vehicles by 2035?
So can I ask, before I answer that, are you specifically, is that 6 million
New
EVs?
New electric vehicles.
In relation to the target of the 2035 target, or are you relating it specifically back to the NVES headline?
Well, the NVES is how this government plans to make the change. This is the policy. So, hey, far be it from me, tell me if I'm wrong, but I would have thought the NVES is this government's policy solution for light vehicles to assist in lowering emissions. If you've got another plan, I'd love to hear it, but as I see it, there's a little bit in biofuels, but the main policy driver is NVES.
So the roadmap, the action plan, the Transport Action Plan, you are correct, identifies electrification as the mature technology for light vehicles. The government has not set...
No, I know. We prosecuted NVES and how it works and the OEM's role in it 100 times. I'm not a beginner here. So I would appreciate the industry has come out subsequent to the announcement saying it's impossible. And I'm interested in knowing whether they bothered to tell you that before the transport sector plan was released. That's what I'm asking. Because they've come out subsequently to say that. I want to know whether the department was advised of that view prior.
So the specific policies in order to get there have not yet been set. So the headline limits out to 2035 have not yet been set. That will
Ms. Purvis-Smith, I'm interested in the we can get to technicalities in outcome 2, but my interest is in the consultation that you undertook with industry. Were you told in your consultations that this would be incredibly difficult to achieve?
The target was decided by other parts of government. We didn't consult specifically on specific targets ourselves.
So who did talk to the transport industry about this?
So we consulted
Was it environment?
We consulted on our Transport Net Zero Action Plan. And then the government took the advice of the Climate Change Authority on the target. The Climate Change Authority also had issues papers that they consulted on prior to providing its final piece of advice to government.
So you took advice from the Climate Change Authority?
The government took advice from the Climate Change Authority.
You didn't?
The government took advice. It was a government decision.
Come on, we can round and round the mulberry bush on this.
I'm not, Senator. The government took advice from the Climate Change Authority.
So I take it from your answer, being a good public servant, and Mr Betts, tell me if I'm wrong, the government took advice, the advice wasn't sought by the Department of Infrastructure, Transport and Regional Development. Someone else.
We provided our material to the Treasury and to the Department of Climate Change, so they knew what we were doing. It was
and where did you get your advice that you gave them from if you didn't get it from industry?
So we were
surprised.
So our consultation was. I'm going to be specific on what our consultation was. Our consultation was on the Transport Action Plan, which was on the feasible technological pathways for each of the modes of transport.
Okay.
That's what our specific consultation was on.
I've got a couple of questions I'll come back to, but I just wanted to understand. understand Norway, the Climate Change Authority boss, Matt Keane, said Norway had achieved 98% EV take-up and had shown the world how to do it. Did you get your advice from the Climate Change Authority?
We consulted ourselves with industry on the technological pathways available to each mode of transport.
And so did industry at that point of consultation let you know what was going to be difficult to achieve?
We provided our net zero action plan for the transport sector to the relevant parts of government and bureaucracy.
It doesn't answer my question, Ms Purvis. I understand you gave that paper here and that paper there. I want to understand the depth of consultation you went to.
And I think I'm trying to explain that our consultation was specific to our net zero action plan, which was specific to the technological pathways for each mode of transport.
So the action plan is in the public domain. You can see.
Yeah,
what
no.
it says.
I understand the
transport-specific targets.
Action plan is different to transport sectoral plan. Yes.
Yes, and the NDES is on the statute book, and you're very familiar with that, as you pointed out. Treasury then has the task of developing a model, which is a whole-of-economy model for the purpose of setting the 2035 emissions reduction target. Our role was to contribute to that, but we don't own the model, and we're not responsible for the overall operation of that model. But to the extent that we contributed to it, it was to make sure that assumptions used by Treasury were reasonable ones from our point of view, and that's what we did. But that's not the same as our developing a transport-specific sector target. We haven't done that.
So that's into the target. In terms of environments, owns the sectoral plan, or do you own the sectoral plan?
We own our own sectoral plan.
The transport sectoral
sectoral plan, yes.
What advice did you receive from industry to develop your sectoral plan? Only the tech.
There was extensive consultation.
Yes, of course.
And I'm just... Stakeholders from industry and communities broadly confirmed their support for the pathways in the sectoral plan. Because we were consulting on the technological pathways for each mode of transport, industry and communities were broadly supportive of that, because we were consulting on the pathways, the technological pathways that are in the sectoral plan.
And this feedback is heavily represented on our website, so you can see the submissions.
Yes, no, I appreciate that. And that advice wasn't changed or modified by the Department of Environment at all?
No, this is feedback from consultations that wasn't modified.
So why do you think industry is now saying it's impossible when they didn't bother to tell you that?
So I think it comes back to what we're consulting on. We were consulting on what was in our sectoral plan. Our sectoral plan outlines the technological pathways.
Yes. Okay. Just in terms of the increase of electric vehicles that's expected, anticipated by Chris Bowen and Catherine King, which industry says is impossible, can I understand what work has been done on the development of the standards around importing these vehicles when it comes to security?
I will have the relevant people on
You
that
would know whether you've been consulting with the industry department around the development of Australian standards.
So, Chair, we're on corporate at the moment, which goes to the administration of the department. These are questions around the regulation of imports of electric vehicles, which I don't think by any assessment could fall within the scope of corporate. But it clearly falls within the scope of transport, which is outcome 2, which we're discussing later on today.
So I'll come back in outcome 2 with a lot of questions on cyber and national security risks from the foreign import of vehicles. I just wanted to...
Senator McKenzie, is it convenient?
Well, it's a new topic.
Yeah, topic. What if we just do a couple of questions? It's on the same matter. Yep.
Thank you, Chair.
Senator Mulholland.
Thank you, Chair. We've heard a bit this morning about feedback from the industry saying it's impossible. What I would like to do is just touch on some of the feedback you have received from parts of the industry, particularly the Australian Trucking Association. And I quote, "We are very pleased that the government's transport roadmap recognises that increasing the uptake of high productivity freight vehicles between now and 2030 must be part of the net zero pathway for heavy vehicles." Also on railway, I've got the Australian Railway Association here and the Public Transport Association of Australia and New Zealand. They also welcome the government's recognition that shifting more journeys to public transport, walking and cycling is a powerful lever to cut emissions and avoid the worst impacts of climate change. And this is the best bit. The 2035 target is ambitious and, quote, achievable, but it requires urgent action and new approaches to be realised. Mr Betts, can you talk us through what some of that further feedback from the industry has been around the sector plan, please?
Well, I think you've encapsulated it quite well. Most of the peak organisations that we deal with, particularly the ATA and the ARA, have been very supportive of the directions in the roadmap. And challenging but achievable is the right place to pitch a target, it seems to me. But they're right correctly to acknowledge that there are further decisions that lie ahead for future governments as to how we exactly chart that path.
Thank you. And particularly just on public transport investment, can you just talk me through, Mr Betts, how will the sector plan help support public transport investments across the country and how this will support driving down emissions?
Well, particularly where public transport involves mass transit, the mass carriage of the commuter task into the centre of our cities. That is a far more carbon efficient way of handling the transport task than people sitting in traffic jams in their private cars. So it's been very pleasing to see in recent years governments of all persuasions in our major cities investing heavily in light rail and heavy rail solutions. And you look at projects like Melbourne Metro, the various Sydney Metro projects, Cross River Rail, Metronet. The more we can achieve mode transfer from private cars into mass public transport, we can reduce road congestion, and road congestion is a driver of economic costs, but it's also a driver of environmental pollution. So that is a significant evolution in transport thinking and planning, which has occurred in Australia over the last 20 years, as I say, for governments across the political spectrum doing that, and public transport is rightly recognised, along with active transport, for the role that it can play in decarbonisation in the roadmap.
Senator McKenzie, just an indication how long before we're going to be on this on corporate matters. Just an indication.
I've got a whole raft of questions. We won't be breaking before.
Well, I'm just sort of mindful that there's a program that's been agreed to.
I'm also mindful that the government can actually pick up the phone and walk into the Minister's office any time they like, so really don't need to use estimates.
Senator McKenzie, there was questions raised. There was questions raised in this hearing, and the opposition the government also has a right to ask questions. There was questions of clarification, actually, in light of some of the inferences you made. So I think it's actually, for those that are listening in, and there are people listening in, then they get a balanced view. But if I go to the timings that have been existing on asking questions, a considerable amount of time has gone to the opposition. And I do note, when I was in opposition, that nothing like that amount of time was actually available.
Are you making an argument? Are you chairing or are you making an argument?
Well, I'm
usually
I'm chairing, and I'm putting quite clearly that if we want to have the sessions go along properly, then we'll continue to ask questions. We'll give an appropriate chance for the government to also ask questions. And if you want to make commentary, then I will take the opportunity to make commentary as well.
I'm not chairing. That's why I choose not to chair, so I can comment.
Now, if we're on the right track, back to Senator McKenzie, how long are we going to be? Because the opposition has agreed with a timetable for these matters. I'm just trying to get an indication for the people that are here on how long they're going to be held here for.
Until we're finished with corporate questions.
That's of great deal of assistance, Senator McKenzie.
I'm always
as per
happy
usual.
to assist.
Senator McKenzie's a team player.
Always happy to assist. I
Senator
have the
McKenzie.
call. Thank you so much. Mr Betts, I have, thanks to the fast work of the Secretariat, I now have the Transport Sector Plan in front of me. And so if I could just turn to page 8, figure 1. In the plan itself, it says by 2035, fossil fuels will only be used in very specific circumstances when it comes to light vehicles. So to me, in reading your own plan, it suggests that electric vehicles will be the primary pathway to low emissions in that sector. I can't read that any other way.
So are you looking at the column on the right-hand side that's 2035 to 2050?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's 2035 to 2050.
So what does that actually mean? What does that mean when we go from 2035 EVs becoming increasingly affordable thanks to Chinese options and tax subsidies, 2030 to 35 continued improvement in EV technologies, and then by 2035 fossil fuels only to be used in very specific circumstances, becoming increasingly rare. What does that actually mean in practice for the Australian vehicle fleet?
It means it will be progressively decarbonised, and through the take-up of electric vehicles and in the interim plug-in hybrids and hybrids, we've seen a 16.9% increase in the sales of those vehicles just in the year to date, so we are on that pathway now. Ms Purvis-Smith may want to add to that.
The Secretary explains that very well. What I would point out is that the 2035 to 2050 is a span, and what this explains is the pathway and the technology pathway for light vehicles. It describes the transition that is over time, and that last column goes out to 2050.
Did you do modelling to actually get to this pathway?
This is a
Hopeful?
pathway.
Is this hopeful
This is,
or based on evidence?
we based it on consultation and analysis, and this is a pathway,
So-
a technology pathway.
And what is the evidence you've based this on, which goes back to what you consulted with industry on the technology. What was their advice?
Their advice in relation to what the technology pathway was on this was as what's in the sector plan.
So what evidence and analysis came up with these 3 rows of pathway?
Overwhelming evidence. Overwhelming evidence from industry, from academia, from other jurisdictions, that the pathway to decarbonisation for light vehicles is via progressive electrification.
Progressive or aggressive?
Progressive. And that is not in dispute. Even those people who have expressed concern about the rate at which, say, the new vehicle efficiency standard will be driving change in the fleet are not disputing that electrification is the technology. So this roadmap, in a way, looks at the contribution that transport can play towards the decarbonisation of the overall Australian economy by 2050, and then asks the question, what is the most certain and what is the most cost-effective technological pathway to the achievement of that? And that is what is answered by progressive electrification of the light vehicle fleet. And as I mentioned before, far more than in the case of aviation or maritime or even heavy vehicles, the technological pathway is not in dispute, although people may have different views about the rate at which it is practical to progress down that path.
And I think it's the rate that is problematic, because in this plan you say electric vehicles become increasingly affordable. That's a very positive way by saying petrol and diesel cars become unaffordable. Because how are you making electric vehicles more affordable? the policy settings you've adopted actually just make petrol and diesel cars, other options other than electric vehicles, unaffordable. So if you're buying a new car, if you're in that market, that's the whole purpose of the policy.
If you're talking about the NVES, Senator, the purpose of the policy...
What other policies do you have in place to make electric vehicles increasingly affordable?
Light vehicles, NVES is the main game. Yes.
Thank you.
That's right. There are other policies in relation to the FBT policy, etc. But in relation to the NVES, the objective of the policy is to incentivise manufacturers to bring in more fuel-efficient vehicles.
I can only read this by 2035, petrol and diesel cars will be phased out. That's the only way I can read it. And it marries with industry's public comments around the impossibility of achieving this. To the Secretary's point, the technology may not be in dispute from industry, but the aggressive rate is. And so I'm fascinated. I'm actually fascinated that you can be told something and your evidence and analysis has told you to make petrol and diesel cars, other technologies, unaffordable, so that EVs are affordable, and by 2035 there won't be any. Fossil fuels will be petrol and diesel cars will only be bought in very rare circumstances.
Senator, the right-hand column that says fossil fuels only used in very specific circumstances is between 2035 and 2050. So I read that as being across that whole time period between 2035 and 2050. When the
roadmap states 2025 to 2030 electric vehicles become increasingly affordable, what are the measures by which EVs will become increasingly affordable? NVES, as Senator, there you go, there's a promotion, Secretary. Big pay drop, but a promotion nonetheless. Sorry.
What was the question?
Yeah. We tend to do this. What are the measures by which electric vehicles become increasingly affordable across government?
Across government, as you're aware, the NVES, there is the FBT policy as well, the fringe benefits tax policy. They are the main two for light vehicles, for electric vehicles. But as technology progresses as scale, then you would expect, as you usually find, that prices, like we have a very competitive market, and prices reduce and they become increasingly affordable.
So, Ms. Purvis-Smith, you've got all the evidence, you've done the consultation, and as the Secretary said, I think evidence and analysis, or one of you said evidence and analysis, to come up with this plan. Is the modelling behind that, is the synthesis of that evidence and analysis available publicly?
The synthesis of the material is in the
plan. I should have known you were going to say that. The synthesis of the evidence and analysis is the plan. In terms of the modelling that sits behind this that allows you to make these claims and these goals, where do I get a copy of that?
So, as I've explained, this roadmap answers the question, what is the most sure technological path to decarbonisation? What is the most cost-effective path to decarbonisation by mode? And the answer is electrification in the case of light vehicles, and the NVES and the other policy interventions that Ms Purvis-Smith has identified are a big part of that. But those are the government interventions. The real driver here will be technological innovation and competition between suppliers of light vehicles. and in other jurisdictions that is driving a significant expansion in the availability of different types of EVs, hybrids, plug-in hybrids. So capitalism is going to drive the cost effectiveness of this as much as government intervention is.
So again, great summation of why you want to do this. I'm asking about the modelling that sits behind your sectoral plan and where I get a copy of that.
The sectoral plan is not based around modelling in the way that, say, the 2035 target is based around the modelling which Treasury has undertaken, and we've talked about the fact that Treasury has...
You fed into that, yes?
We fed some assumptions and some information into that, but the way in which that was aggregated across the whole economy is something that you should ask Treasury about. They own that. So
you didn't do any actuarial work based on your evidence you gathered? You simply gave them, these are the assumptions you're going to have to feed into your model?
Where they asked us, we gave them the assumptions that we thought were the reasonable ones that they should apply.
So what were the assumptions you gave Treasury?
Okay, we can provide you with some.
So what we provided Treasury with was, so DITRA provided a lot of data and transport data. It's similar to their DITRA yearbook.
For Hansard, just explaining what DITRA is.
The Bureau of
yes.
the Infrastructure and Transport Economics. So we provided a lot of data and information across to Treasury. We also provided all of the assumptions for the NVES across to Treasury. They asked questions. They came to their own assumptions. They have outlined their assumptions in their modelling paper and in their technical assumptions. So they came to their own decisions around what assumptions they used. But we provided what we had
with your learned input. Were there assumptions about the behaviour of the transport sector that were different from the assumptions that you gave them?
Their models are so. There's more than one model. And their technical assumptions paper goes through all of the different models. Yeah. And how it's used. Yep. They came to their own conclusions because their models work differently.
So my question is that you will have said, we've consulted widely and deeply. These are our learned assumptions as the experts in this field around the transport sector and the achievability, etc. Treasury's made their own. My question's a simple one. Did the assumptions for the transport sector change? Was it different? I'm hearing it is, but that's just me picking up the crumbs.
There are differences, but their models work
I know.
differently.
We'll let the Treasury officials explain why they're different, okay? My question to you is, did it change from what you gave them? Because they will tell me, oh, we didn't do the consultations. That's the Department of Transport, and I won't have you in front of me by that day. So, thank you. That's asked and answered, and I will pursue that elsewhere. I just wanted to go to some corporate questions around DLOs. Road user charge. Come on. It was such big news. It was the only news out of the productivity roundtable.
How is that corporate, Senator?
Come on. It is corporate.
I don't think it goes to the administration of the department. It's the biggest thing the government's done since the election. It's been the only thing they've done. Come on, Secretary, don't make me go down that track. So, the road user charge. Biggest deal in town. Everyone's super, super excited. I'm assuming Treasury... I hope Treasury came to you guys. Hope Treasury what?
Came to you to get advice
Treasury
prior to the productivity roundtable?
We certainly talked to Treasury prior to the productivity roundtable, yes.
About a road user charge?
Yeah, as you'll be aware, there was quite an exercise within government for the Treasurer and other relevant ministers to reach out to their colleagues to seek out ideas around productivity improvement, more efficient approaches to regulation and so on, and we were as much part of that as any other government department. And yes, there's a lot of commentary around road user charging around the round table. Whilst Treasury has had carriage of that, our department is now assuming a leadership role in terms of taking that to the next stage.
Right, and what does the next stage look like?
Well, that's what we're working through at the moment. The Council on Federal Financial Relations on the 5th of September released a joint statement which included a number of principles to guide the development of road user charging for electric vehicles. Reform should be designed not to deter continued EV take-up, should provide for more equitable treatment across vehicle types, which I know is something you're very keen on, Senator, and provide certainty to support investment, should be as simple as possible and minimise administration and compliance burdens, and that any changes should be phased to enable productivity, climate and consumer benefits of increasing EV take-up over the coming years. So that's the kind of mandate that's been given to us, and we're at the early stages of mobilising to internally to progress road user charging.
So we're not wanting to, we're worried about EV take-up.
It's one of the
The
things...
free ride that electric vehicles are currently getting when it comes to paying for road maintenance and upgrade, that we're going to go through the IIP and talk about the degraded roads for ad nauseum today. Electric vehicle drivers don't pay that currently, which is why equity in this is a good thing.
Consideration, yes.
Correct. But I'm fascinated that EV take-up, we can't disincentivise EV take-up, is now a consideration of how we upgrade and maintain our roads.
So this was a joint statement by the participants in the Council on Federal Financial Relations, which is the states and territories along with the Commonwealth, and governments of different political colours, and the principles make clear that there is a balance to be struck. There is a balance to be struck between equitable treatment on the one hand, and making sure that all road users pay their fair share, but also making sure that we don't introduce disincentives to the decarbonisation of the transport sector, which is also an important objective. So part of the work that we'll be undertaking as we lead that next stage is to work out how best to balance those things, and no doubt future Senate estimates we'll talk to you about.
So can I just ask, the disincentivising, making sure a road user charge model doesn't disincentivise electric vehicle take-up, was that added by your department? Was it added by Treasury? Or was it added by Environment to how we consider a road user charge?
Well, it was a group of Treasury officials, and the formulation in the communique was any changes phased to enable productivity, climate and consumer benefits.
No, you answered it with Treasury officials. That's fine. You weren't in the room?
Correct.
Did you provide the Treasury officials with advice on this?
We talk to our Treasury colleagues all the time, as I've said, including in the run-up to the round table.
On this, before the Commonwealth Treasury official went into the room to come out with this joint communique, did they have advice from your department to not disincentivise EV take-up?
Yes. So we on the one hand want to ensure that there is equitable treatment across different categories of motorist. We want to make sure that we don't compromise the achievement of the government's and indeed the Parliament's environmental objectives, and we want to make sure that revenues are sufficient to maintain our road network in good condition. And a successful road user charge for EVs will balance all of those considerations.
And that was advice from your department?
It was not a source of contention. I think it's an agreed position, not just between Commonwealth government departments, but between the Commonwealth and the states.
Okay. We'll revisit that in the appropriate outcome. Can you list the full machinery of government changes impacting the department following the election, please?
Yes, relatively straightforward. We gained sport and its related agencies.
It's best.
I think so.
Best.
I think so. Thank you, Senator. So that's the Office of Sport and the National Sports Tribunal. 65 staff in the Office of Sport and 11 in the National Sports Tribunal. We transferred over to Treasury responsibility for cities and urban policy and lands, and that was 14 ASL 14 staff that transferred. I can give you the numbers in terms of financials.
From you to Treasury?
Yes. So
how many from Sport to you?
65.2 ASL in the Office for Sport and 11 in the National Sports Tribunal. And there are some dollars associated with those changes as well, which I'm happy to give you if that would be helpful.
Positive?
Well, sport, these figures relate to 25-26 financial years, 16.8 million in departmental, 157.8 million in administered operating expenditure and 164.1 million in administered capex. That's the Office of Sport coming in. And then cities, there was no capital expenditure. That was $3 million of departmental going to transfer to Treasury.
Okay. What date did cities and planning functions? So when you say cities,
July.
you also talk about the responsibility for planning with that, and we've talked about that in the first estimates after the election of 22. What date did that transfer out of the department?
Thank you, Senator. Charge Rodnowski, First Assistant Secretary and Chief Financial Officer. So the Section 75 appropriations transferred on 1 July and the staffing transferred at the first appropriate pay period in the new financial year. So the staff transferred on the 3rd of July.
3rd of July, thank you. So what has the government given as the reason for this change to transfer cities and planning out of the Department of Infrastructure?
Well, I'd rely on the media releases that were put out at the time. These are decisions which are taken by the Prime Minister and the government rather than by public servants.
I appreciate that.
But I think the overall strategic direction was to concentrate within Treasury, reporting to Minister O'Neill, all the functions relevant to her mission, if you like, to accelerate the supply of housing, particularly in our major urban areas.
Without an appreciation and understanding or expertise in infrastructure required to increase human residences in cities?
Well, I guess the starting point is to ensure that the expertise in terms of urban planning and the oversight of programs like the Housing Support Program transferred over to Treasury, so that there would be, if you like, a centre of excellence within Treasury capable of driving all of that. But obviously the Land Transport Infrastructure Program, which our department continues to be responsible for, is a major catalyst for densification, housing supply, not just in our major cities but elsewhere. So our continuing relationship with Treasury will be very important to the government's achievement of its housing objectives.
So what elements of the city's portfolio have left you? The whole lot?
No, it's 14. Well, yes, effectively the whole lot, yeah.
So Minister O'Neill's now responsible for thriving suburbs?
No, so Thriving Suburbs is a community infrastructure program. Minister O'Neill is responsible for the housing support program under the new arrangements that have been set up. But by agreement between ministers, we retained responsibility for Thriving Suburbs, which is largely a community infrastructure thing, as opposed to something which is primarily related to housing supply. And the urban precincts and partnerships? Likewise. That program is obviously at an advanced stage now, so that remains within our portfolio.
So just to be really clear, what exactly did we transfer when we say cities moved to Treasury? In terms of administered spend programs? Yep, Ms.
So thank you, Senator. So in terms of the 14 ASL and what we transferred to Treasury, so that was to support national policy on cities and land and planning policy, the planning ministers' meeting and the enabling infrastructure for housing.
Which is the housing support program.
Okay. Aside from the MOG changes, what changes to the department's budget since the election compared with March 25-26 budget and PFO? Okay, please just walk me through.
As against the budget. Okay, so there obviously hasn't been a budget since then.
No, but...
We can talk about the headline levels of departmental resourcing and how those change as we move from financial year 24-25 into 25-26. And the answer to that, Ms. Jordanowski...
Well, has there been any changes to your budget post-election and PFO?
So thank you, Senator.
Aside from mogging?
Yeah, thank you, Senator. So we haven't yet published our portfolio addition estimate statement, so that will be published early in the new year per the traditional timeframes. We did have some changes which were announced as part of the PFO. Yep. So we did have a couple of measures in relation to that. So that was for two measures that comprised of $170 million and $49 million respectively so that was for the MOG, $170 million, and the PFO, which was $49 million.
And no other changes to your budget since then?
No, those are the published
Yeah, no, I know they're the published one, which is why I asked the questions. We're in Senate estimates.
Yes, no, thank you.
That
Senator.
was a while ago, May, but there's been no changes.
Correct.
Okay. What efficiency targets have been set post-election for 25, 26, 26, 27 and 27, 28?
So thank you, Senator. We have our ongoing efficiency dividend of 1%, so that's the ongoing rate. We have also contributed to the existing savings from external labour hire. So that was the original measure from the 2022-23 budget and the extension. So for this year, our contribution to that existing measure is about $9.5 million for the 25-26 year.
And over the four?
Over the forward estimates for that existing measure, so for our department only, we have, so next year, 26-27, we have $6 million, 27-28, we have $8.1 million, and 28-29, $8.1 million as part of that existing measure.
Okay, so what staff reduction targets has the government imposed for 25, 26 and 26, 27 years?
The government hasn't imposed staff reduction targets.
How are you going to meet these efficiency targets, Secretary?
Well, we are going to meet the efficiency targets. We have a reduction in our departmental expenditure, which is partly about terminating measures which are always designed to terminate at a point in time. And then we have the overlay of the efficiency targets that we are talking about. In some cases, we manage that through natural attrition, so we prioritise those things which are genuine priorities for the government or obligations that we have under legislation. And as positions are vacated, we tightly control recruitment. And we bear down heavily on supplier expenditure to make sure we're getting maximum value there, and also respond to the strong signals the government has sent around efficiency in terms of avoiding excessive use of consultants, avoiding excessive travel budgets, etc. So through those various levers, we are aiming for a balanced budget this year, just as we achieved one last year.
The organisational chart omits reference to one of my favourite units, the net zero unit.
Yeah.
What happened?
So the net zero unit had acquitted its basic mission, which was the production of the transport and infrastructure roadmap, which we've talked about extensively this morning. That roadmap having been consulted on and delivered, the carriage of the various actions in that, again, we've talked about the NVES, but also in relation to low carbon liquid fuels and the maritime emissions national action plan, are now embedded in various parts of the department. There is a small residual coordinating function, which was part of net zero, which is now transferred over into our strategic economic policy function. But the net zero units, having acquitted its mission, it's now the responsibility of other parts of the department to deliver on the decarbonisation agenda.
So in the letter to the committee, Ian Porter has retired.
Correct.
Because the net zero unit disappeared, or?
Mr Porter decided that he wanted to retire.
So he retired before the net zero unit was and its functions were absorbed in the department, or how did that work?
It's around the same time. So he indicated to me a few months ago that he was looking to retire after a long and distinguished career. We, at the same time, are thinking about how we could optimise the design of the department, not least to deliver some of the efficiency savings required of us, and that converged in Ian retiring and the net zero unit having its functions distributed elsewhere.
A neat convergence.
Yep.
So net zero units functions have been absorbed into the department, into the strategic economic.
The central coordinating function has, but that you'll hear later on from our service transport emissions policy group, for instance, who have been responsible for policy in maritime decarbonisation, land transport decarbonisation, and you'll see that there are multiple parts of the department which are undertaking activities in that space.
So it would be fair to say that every division within the department now has a decarbonisation.
Those which are particularly transport and infrastructure, obviously it's less of an issue in the arts and sport, but you never know.
Those athletes, they fly a lot. OK, so were there any other staff reductions other than Mr Porter.
Well, there are
But
staff
all the
changes.
staff kind of were put into different divisions, or the staff that were employed by the Net Zero unit, where are they, other than Mr Porter?
Well, at its height, the Net Zero unit had 12 staff.
Yep.
I believe about 4 have been retained in the strategic economic policy function, and those other staff are now have been found homes elsewhere in the to continue the work that they were doing previously, but within the line divisions of the department.
Okay, so what was the total cost of the Net Zero unit, including salaries, over the entire period of its existence?
Well, I don't have that figure for the entire period of its existence. But
2 years.
I could give you a per annum, I think it's 3 years, give you a per annum figure, which would be about 2.1 million. That was in 24-25, I believe. That's out of a departmental budget of about 550 million. Roughly.
And so does that include the salaries also within that unit? Or
That is
the whole
salaries,
lot?
yeah.
Okay. The purpose of the report and program management task force in the Land Transport Infrastructure Division? What's the purpose of that task force?
I think you would need to ask that in program 2.
I'm pretty sure this is an organisational change question. I'm pretty sure they didn't make it up by themselves. Someone at a senior management level would have to work out we wanted a report and program management task force.
Was that the RPM, report performance RPM and land transport?
What do they do? What's the purpose of them?
They're actually rebuilding our IMS database that holds all of our dollars and reports on our program.
How many staff are assigned to it and what's its budget? Oh, told you it was corporate.
Bear with me for a second, Senator.
Sits within our infrastructure group.
I might just get the team. We can answer these questions in outcome 1 if you like, but I will get the...
It's just a matter of finding the data.
Yeah, I just thought it was a pretty basic corporate question.
Say who you are.
How many staff? What is its budget?
Say who you are.
Is it a fixed period of establishment or an ongoing task force?
Dr. Paul Cutting, Assistant Secretary, RPM Task Force. The number of staff we have are around 6. I don't have the budget figures on me at the moment, but I can get that. And we also have a number of contractors.
Paul, it is budget estimates.
So
You're supposed to bring the numbers with you.
We'll get that number for you during the day, Senator, if we can't get it immediately, so I apologise for that.
So 6 staff. Is the task force time limited?
Yes, we are time limited, Senator. We're going to finish in about... we've got funding till end of the financial year next year, but we expect most of our work to be finished in around March.
26.
26.
Yeah.
And 6 staff, and you'll give me the budget.
Yes, and a number of contractors, because most of it's IT work. It's all building a system.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. I just want to go to the DLOs.
Sure.
We can give you the budget now that we've got it up.
Excellent. See, wasn't that far away?
It wasn't. So the budget for this year is 9.3 million. That includes CapEx and OpEx. And as Ms Hall mentioned earlier, most of the costs are for contractors to deliver the product by
So the 6
March.
staff, does that include you, Dr Cutting?
Yes, it does.
Yes, it does.
So I would like to understand, Assistant Secretary, if the $6.3 million, that does include your 6 staff salaries as well.
Yes, but it also includes about, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, about 20 contractors.
Thank you. Okay, DLOs. How many DLOs does the department provide Catherine King?
2.
2. What levels?
EL1.
DL. Madeline King?
0. There is a DLO provided by the Department of Industry, Science and Resources, but none from us.
None from you. Minister McBain?
Minister McBain 1, EL1.
Thank you. Senator Chisholm?
1 EL1.
Ooh. I'd be complaining if I was Minister McBain. Senator Green?
0.
Okay. Has there been any change to the number of DLOs provided compared to prior to the election?
I think we've got... No, I don't think there has.
The only change, Senator, was before we had 8 because Minister Brown also had a DLO, but we've now lost that necessity, so we now have 7.
And with the shift of the cities and planning over to Treasury, are there any DLOs from your department assisting Minister O'Neill?
No.
No. Okay. Have there been any DLOs from the department that have served more than 2 years with ministers?
We generally have a time limit on the stints
we
that
do.
DLOs serve.
No, we don't have anyone who's
But we
served for
don't
longer
have-
than 2 years.
Right. Okay. Because we know the generality rule and the good reasons for it, has anybody served more than 1 year with their minister?
Yes, there is.
Yeah. And which I don't expect. Which ministers' offices are those DLOs in?
Susan Charles, Acting First Assistant Secretary for Enabling Services. We've had DLOs that have gone beyond their 12 months, and that's only been a couple of months here and there. So, for example, in Minister Burke's office, the former DLO prior to the election, I don't know the exact timeframes, but we can come back to you, did just over 12 months, and we've had those on occasion in Minister King's office as well, but they have only been as part of transition or as new DLO. So it hasn't been significant in terms of timing.
Can I just ask, and I don't know the answer to this genuinely, so does the timing reset pre and post election for DLOs, or it's because they're ongoing with the department? Thank you. Let Hansard reflect the nods. Thank you. Now I want to go to secondments. So I would like to understand how many departmental officials have been seconded to Minister King's office.
Is this since the election? We've provided relief support in various offices. So in Minister King's office we've had 1 SES officer and 10 ELs and APS transition through that office.
Okay. Minister McBain?
Oh, sorry. I've just been corrected. Since May 2022.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's going to go, wow.
Yeah.
It's right up there.
Correct. Thank you for the correction.
But since the election, so if it's 1 SES and 10 ELS APS...
Since May 22.
I want to know now, since May 25.
I don't have that data. We'll get that for you. Yeah.
Minister McBain?
The same. I only have a data since the May election, not since the May 2022.
The May election. Yeah. The May election.
the former one. So I don't have them from this current year, but I can get that data.
Okay, so give me what you've got.
So for Minister McBain, we've had 7 EL APS relief staff in Minister McBain's office since May 2022. Minister Rowland's office, we've had 3 SES officers and 12 ELs and APS. And Senator Carol Brown, we had 1 SES officer and 1 EL and APS since May 2022.
And Senator Chisholm?
None.
And Senator Green?
None.
Okay. What were the reasons for departmental officials to be seconded?
Usually these were either for transition or for short-term stints. The majority of them were under the 3 months. There were some that eventually did transition under MOPS, but the standard placement is under the 12 weeks.
Under 12 weeks. So of the 10 ELS APS in Minister King's office, how many of those went over their 3 months?
Went over to MOPS.
Yeah.
To transition to employment under the MOPS Act.
And Minister McBain?
Same, 2 transitioned under the MOPS Act.
And Minister Rowland?
1.
Thank you. I just want to go to the response to parliamentary inquiries. Secretary, are you aware of Senate Resolution 44, government response to committee reports are required to be tabled within 3 months of the report being handed to the Senate?
Yes.
And in your view, as a professional public servant, as your department has your department met those requirements?
I'd be interested to know whether you have specific reports in mind. Generally speaking, the tabling of responses to Senate inquiries is a matter for ministers to determine the timing of. So we would provide advice, but then that would really be a matter for you to take up with ministers.
No, I agree. So my question to you isn't about what ministers decide to do. It's that you're aware of your responsibilities as the department, and have you complied with those requirements within the time stipulated?
We would always endeavour to make sure that ministers were equipped with the information that they needed in order to comply with their obligations on tabling. Yeah.
Are there any exceptions to that you know of, or that? And I would like to know, because I assume you would be letting ministers know well in advance that we need to get this response in, and then it is absolutely a determination for a minister, as it should be.
Yeah.
I'm not arguing against that.
So I'm going to have to take that on notice, Senator, rather than...
But you could be genuinely confident that your department officials have met their obligations and aware of their obligations and have met that. And
that would certainly be my expectation, but let me take that on notice.
Thank you.
So, Kate Ferris, Assistant Secretary for Government Services. I'm aware of 2 instances where the department has not met the timeframes for delivery of parliamentary questions or notice. Both of those were administrative accidents from my area. One was an instance where the responsible person was away and didn't do a handover. The other was where an email went unanswered, sitting in an inbox, and wasn't referred to the correct line area in a timely manner.
That happens in my office too.
It does. We've since instituted a range of different processes to ensure those things don't happen again in future.
Thanks, Ms Ferris. And now, I appreciate you said that was about quants. My question was about committee report responses. So I'm not sure if anyone at the tables also can take that on notice to see if there are any where the department wasn't able to provide ministers with advice within the timeframes. Specifically, the Qantas inquiry, well, that's the colloquial term, was almost 2 years ago, and we still haven't got a government response. Can I have some understanding about when the department sent the draft response to the Minister's office?
So we would need to, we'll see if we can find out that information and we can deal with it maybe under outcome 2.
Outcome 2. Excellent. I will be following this up. So outcome 2, that's a priority. Thank you, Chair. I'll keep going. Yep, with my...
You're more
awesome.
than welcome to keep going.
That's great. Let's get through corporate. You're going to hear
those 5-minute blocks.
Gee, if my voice grates this early, you're going to be losing your mind by 11 o'clock.
So would it be just on corporate, help to give us an indication. We're obviously breaking at 10:45, but should we just stay a bit longer so you can complete, or...?
That's quite a big one. We can start. I've probably got only one more topic in corporate, but it is not probably going to be finished in 5 minutes. But I can start. Do you have any?
I just want to ask one question supplementary to Senator Mackenzie's last question on government responses to
Go ahead,
inquiries.
Senator. Yep.
And so I just put you on notice that I will come back and ask more about TFES inquiry, which reported prior to the last election, when we get back to that stage. So if you've got a similar answer to the question that Senator Mackenzie's just asked about time that you've provided that data to government, I'd appreciate that at that point in time.
That was TFES, did you say? Yes, okay. So
Tasmania Freight Equalisation Scheme, Senate Select Committee.
that will be under outcome 2, so yes, we'll be happy to.
We're going to be pedantic about our responses today. Heads up, everyone.
Senator Mackenzie,
I have got something to take us to the break, and then I've only got one more topic post-break.
Yeah, right. Good, thanks.
So just following up on the transfer of the mogging of cities to Treasury, has the Urban Policy Forum been transferred to Treasury?
I think the answer is yes, but I'll check that.
I thought I heard. Do you want to? I've got a couple. Because I thought you said the policy response had stayed with us, but I just want to clarify that. When I say us, I mean you.
So Senator, there was, my understanding is we ended up changing one of the outcomes to remove the word cities to replace that with urban. So I'll have to take that on notice to confirm.
Hang on, here comes David.
Incoming.
Cavalry
David
on
Orme.
its way.
Good morning, Senator. David McKay, Deputy Secretary. Responsibility for the Urban Policy Forum did transfer as part of the Cities and Suburbs Unit moving to the Treasury.
So, Secretary, the Infrastructure Department, the Commonwealth Infrastructure Department, no longer has a role in city infrastructure outside the grants programs?
I know we obviously have a major role through our land transport infrastructure program, but the 14 people who were working on urban policy have transferred over to Treasury and will support the Housing Minister in her agenda.
So Macquarie Point Stadium
remains with us, yes.
Remains with Department. What about the National Capital Investment Framework between the Commonwealth and the ACT?
That remains with us as part of Mr McKay's group.
And does Minister King retain a role in the Planning Ministers' meeting? That was our very first series of questions on housing crisis once this government was elected, and her failure to actually call a meeting.
Ms Jordanowski indicated that the Planning Minister, the responsibility for the Planning Ministers' meeting is transferred to Minister O'Neill or Treasury.
So Minister King is no longer playing a role as the Infrastructure Minister in that.
She may participate in it as a participating minister, but she's no longer the chair and no longer responsible for it. That's Minister O'Neill from now on.
And for ITM, do they talk about cities there?
Well, we talk about a whole range of different infrastructure and transport matters which are relevant to cities, yes.
Yeah, so that hasn't been diminished. All right. Thank you, Chair. I have incoming. Does the department still have a role in the development of national urban policy development, which requires the integrated response? So how are you going to talk to Treasury? Have you set up an interdepartmental working group? Established relationships are going to make it all work?
Mr McKay's disappeared.
Mr McKay, come on.
I think there are multiple forums, including obviously cabinet meetings and officials committees by which we talk about these things. It's fair to say that the transfer has occurred relatively recently, and
is there any formal structures in place to ensure that that we don't end up with Treasury running and doing things that are literally the Infrastructure Department has no idea about? Because, as we've seen, when you don't marry your migration policy with your infrastructure policy and your housing policy, you end up with a whole lot of problems in particularly congested suburbs. So how are we going to alleviate that reality rather than exacerbate it?
So that was one of the very first topics that I discussed with my counterpart in Treasury when we were working through the details of the MOG. I'll have the relevant people in my team here under Outcome 3 who can speak to how that's working in practice, but we were very conscious of the need to ensure that programs that we administer, for instance, Thriving Suburbs Urban Precincts program, had a connection maintained with the people working in the Cities and Suburbs unit on urban policy.
Minister, do you think that's the right call, to actually shift the cities out of this department into Treasury?
Well, I think the key thing to understand, Senator Mackenzie, is that we've got two really high-performing ministers, in Minister
so
King
many
and
houses
Minister
built.
O'Neill, and I know that they both will be determined to make an impact in this area, and Minister O'Neill has the primary responsibility, and I certainly see a lot of action from her since the election, knowing the responsibilities that we have and how important this issue is.
But why couldn't that still be done through this area? Because she could have just been... This department has so many ministers, can have another high-performing minister attached to it, just like all its other high-performing ministers.
And
so my question is, why isn't Minister O'Neill and the Cities unit being run out of this department?
That was obviously the decision was made. That's where they think it best fits and best able to achieve the goals that we took to the election and implement.
So you're not concerned at all of the coordination of infrastructure rollouts through the $120 billion infrastructure pipeline, the road projects, the transport projects, to deal with the 205,000 additional migrants that Minister Burke's putting in, that this department's trying to actually get the infrastructure built for, and we've moved housing these people over to Treasury? You're very confident in the coordination?
I am. I think the department have talked through the processes that they're establishing, and I'm confident that we'll see a level of achievement that will be important for the country.
I'm confident that your rise through the ministry will continue with answers like that. I will wait till after the break for my next session of questions.
Could we just quickly clarify one answer?
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Sorry, thank you, Senator. So earlier you asked me a question about changes to our appropriations. So I can say that, you know, in addition to the MOG changes, to the PFO changes that have been published and announced, there are obviously matters being considered by government through the MyEFO process. While I'm unable to speak to those because they are being considered by government, those changes will have a flow-on effect to our appropriations, which will be published in the pays next February. So I just wanted to clarify that, you know, whilst I said no in terms of the changes outside the two MOG and PFO, there are obviously matters still being considered. So I just wanted to, just for clarity and for the Hansard, just wanted to make that really clear.
Well, it shows your ministers are being active in ERC, which isn't a bad thing. Thank you, Chair.
Good, thanks very much. I was hoping we were going to finish on the fact you're endorsing Senator...
We've done it before in this committee. Carol Brown and Senator Chisholm were up for a promotion, and we backed Chisholm.
But I'd like to thank the department.
And we came back from lunch and he was promoted.
If you come back to corporate matters just after 11 o'clock. Thank you.